The Saints have made the voyage across the pond. They're in London, looking to take down the Vikings and right their own ship, heading back to New Orleans with a victory. Welcome into Saints Gameday Live, presented by Sanderson Farms. It's an early kick. I hope you have a freshly brewed cup of coffee, and I won't judge you if it has a little kick to it. I'm here alongside our senior writer, DeShazier, Erin Summers. It's going to be a fun-packed show. It's an 8:30 a.m. kick on NFL Network. We're going to have live reports from Todd Graffagnini in London. Then we're going to have a player spotlight with McCoy and a breakdown with Zach Line. And of course, we're going to check in with everybody out there in London in the black and gold roll call. Let's start things off with that countdown to kickoff presented by Bullseye and Todd Graffagnini at Tottenham Stadium.
Thank you, Erin and JD, here in Northwest London at beautiful Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the Saints-Vikings matchup. This is the third time the Saints will have played in London, winning the previous two back at Wembley Stadium in 2008 and 2017 against the Chargers and the Dolphins. This is a state-of-the-art facility, just 3 years old, not only home to Tottenham Hotspur of the English Premier League, but they built this place with the full intention of hosting NFL games. It's also going to be very loud in here. 60,000 people will be in attendance. This stadium was designed with the acoustics of a concert hall to keep the noise in. So the atmosphere is going to be tremendous. Of course, the Saints come in at 1-2 after the loss last week in Charlotte. The big news all week long has been quarterback Jameis Winston. He did not participate in practice, and we got word that quarterback Andy Dalton will be starting for the first time in his Saints career. Also of note, wide receiver Michael Thomas is out today as well, so other receivers will have to pick up the slack in Michael Thomas's absence. As far as the Vikings, they are 2-1. They're coming off a big win a week ago in Minneapolis, a comeback win at that against the Detroit Lions. 28-24 was the final score. The winning touchdown scored with 45 seconds remaining. It was a 28-yard touchdown pass from quarterback Kirk Cousins to wide receiver KJ Osborne. Kirk Cousins has a lot of weapons at his disposal, specifically running back Dalvin Cook, who was cleared to play this week after separating his shoulder in week 1. Cook is one of the best running backs in the NFL, very dynamic at that, and the Saints are going to have their hands full with him today. That's not the only weapon at Kirk Cousins' disposal. Wide receiver Adam Thielen has hurt the Saints in the past, and of course, Saints fans will recognize former LSU Tiger Justin Jefferson. Defensively, the Vikings bring back linebacker E.J. Hendricks and safety Harrison Smith. After they missed the Detroit game with injury, they practiced fully all week long. Now, the Lions were able to get 416 yards total offense against Minnesota a week ago. However, the Vikings held the Lions to a very stingy 3 for 16 on third down conversions. That's going to be something to keep an eye on today. Also, the Vikings were not able to sack quarterback Jared Goff of the Lions, and hopefully the Saints offensive line can continue that pattern as they look to protect Andy Dalton this afternoon. Well, that's our countdown to kickoff, brought to you by Bullseye here in London. Back to you in New Orleans, Erin and JD.
Thanks, Todd, for that report from over there in London. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun over there and an awesome stadium to play at. We're going to take a look at the offense now, John. Definitely want to find some rhythm for the Saints. Where does it start? What players are you looking at today?
Well, we have to start at quarterback. If Jameis Winston isn't going to play and Andy Dalton is, and that's going to be the case, the 12-year veteran hasn't had a snap this season, but he looked really good in preseason. Of course, that's a different season than the regular season, but he's got a lot of experience. 148 starts in his career, more than 35,000 passing yards, more than 200 touchdowns, 226 to be exact. So he has played every role you can as a quarterback, as a starter and as a backup. He prepares as a starter, as most knowledgeable players do. And so hopefully he can come in and mitigate the turnovers. It wouldn't matter if it was Jameis Winston or Andy Dalton. It begins with the turnovers. Jameis Winston, 5 interceptions in the last 2 games, all of them in the fourth quarter. Hopefully Andy Dalton can mitigate that. Minimize the mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. That's going to be the main thing. He'll get a lot of help on offense because he's got some playmakers around him, but it begins with him taking care of the football.
The Saints have had 8 giveaways over the last 2 games, so definitely an area to focus in on there and to get going a little bit earlier in the game. They've only scored on average a little over 3 points in the first half through the first 3 games. We're going to head now to our breakdown with fullback Zach Line. John DeShazier was able to catch up with him earlier in the week. This is presented by Microsoft Teams. Let's take a listen.
Now joining us for this segment is former Saints fullback and Saints legend Zach Line. Played for the Saints 2017 through 2019. Zach, I got to notice about that 2017 season. Saints went to London and you joined the team the game after they went to London. But that team was in the middle of, had won 2 straight. They ended up winning 8 straight. You missed the first 2 of those, but was there something that you noticed about this team?
Yeah, what was awesome about joining the Saints was just the locker room, man. You can't beat a culture like the one I had in New Orleans. I was coming from Minnesota. I was coming off hip surgery. I was with the Saints in training camp, so I got to know those guys pretty well. But I was blessed to join that team because it brought back my love of football. And there was no real surprise why they won games when you had the locker room that they did.
You know, when you're released early after training camp and then they re-sign you, what was that feeling like to rejoin the team?
I thought the Saints did a good job of kind of staying in communication. I thought I did a good job in training camp. My first day was joint practice with the Texans, so no better team to come out against than a heavy defense like the Houston Texans had. But I thought I did well. I played physical. I knew what Sean was looking for in a fullback, so there was communication going on. So I just kept training, and I knew my opportunity would come.
Now, fullbacks don't get a lot of touches in the NFL, so you end up with 6 career touchdowns, but 3 of them receiving with the Saints. So, did these guys, should they have been splitting you out wide, using those hands?
No, absolutely not. We would do it from here and there to get base personnel on the field. I'd be out wide, but more times than not, I was a decoy, and I was okay with it. So I knew we had talent, and Michael Thomas and Ted Ginn and all those guys around me. Obviously, Alvin Kamara, one of those guys, but I was okay being a decoy. The further I went in my career, the more I enjoyed lead blocking and not getting the ball. So that's a good thing.
Now, Saints are in London, trying to break a 2-game losing streak. What have you noticed about the team so far this season? Because the offense hasn't quite found the rhythm that they've been looking for.
Yeah, I think they have a great staff, and they still have a lot of the same pieces that they had when I was there. They just got to keep grinding, right, and just keep improving that locker room culture and staying together. The one major stat that sticks out to me is turnovers. I think one game was 5, last game was 3. So, those are things you're not taking care of the football the way we always have. I know when we made those 3 big runs at the end of the year, we were plus in the plus-minus category. So that was something that we prided ourselves on. Running backs hold on to football, and obviously defense taking it away. So
now you mentioned the defense. The defense has had back-to-back pretty good games. Hadn't had anything to show for it in the win column, but they've had back-to-back pretty good games. What have you noticed about that unit that has made them kind of a lot more effective than they were week 1?
Dennis Allen defense is always impressive. Probably the hardest defense we go against all year was during training camp when I was with the Saints, because you'd have their base defense first couple of days where it was kind of manila, and then all of a sudden they would turn on the Jets and bring in linebackers and safeties and corners from all over the place. So I've always been really impressed by the way Dennis Allen can put together a defensive game plan. And I always loved the competition between Sean and Dennis. It was quiet, but it wasn't at the same time, right? So Dennis does a great job, and Pete Carmichael's a phenomenal offensive coordinator. So those guys will figure it out.
Well, Zach, we appreciate you joining us so much for this legend segment. Much success for you and the Saints, hopefully over in London this weekend.
For sure. Thank you for having me on.
John, we've talked offense. Let's take a look at the Saints defense now. What can they do to make things a little bit easier for the offensive side of the ball?
Well, one of the things they talked about was creating turnovers, hopefully giving the ball back to the offense, giving the offense extra opportunities, maybe a short field, maybe even scoring themselves. That would help the offense tremendously, because it's been a really tough go for this offense to score so far this season. So if you can get some cheap ones that way, then maybe you can help this offense a little bit more.
The defense has talked about creating turnovers, affecting the ball, and they've also talked about stopping the run. Somebody that they're going to have to key on is running back Dalvin Cook. He has been dealing with that shoulder injury, but it looks like he's going to be a full go. For this season, he's had 17 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Before that injury, a little lower numbers for him. He's always a threat. And then his backup, Alexander Madison. So looking at the play of the line here to really help stop that run and maybe force things a little bit through the air, which brings up another threat on the Vikings offense in wide receiver Justin Jefferson. Who are you looking at to make some big plays here?
I'd put it on Marshawn Lattimore. If Justin Jefferson is their guy and the Saints want a guy to trail him, it'll have to be Marshawn. Paulson Adebo is back at cornerback. Don't know exactly how many reps he'll take in the game. He had minimal reps in the last game against Carolina, so it might be a conditioning issue with him. But if they're going to play man-to-man against the Vikings, and if anybody's going to match up against Jefferson, it's going to be Marshawn Lattimore, who's having an outstanding season so far. I think defensive coordinator Chris Richard said he's only been targeted 7 times this season. That shows you the respect that they have for Marshawn Lattimore. So if the Saints need to go one-on-one and they need to match up against Jefferson, it's going to be Marshawn.
Jefferson had a really big week 1. He had 184 yards on just 9 receptions and then had 2 touchdowns. So hopefully the past 2 weeks he's been limited and the Saints will be able to limit him in this game as well. We're going to check back in with Todd Graffagnini, who has our player spotlight for today with center Erik McCoy.
Todd Graffagnini back in London with our Saints player spotlight, brought to you by Sanderson Farms. We talk with Saints center Erik McCoy. First of all, Erik, you signed a long-term deal right before the season began. What does that make you feel like personally with your family? The fact that the Saints want you around and want you here long-term.
Yeah, I would just say it's a blessing for sure. I feel like that's really the only way that I can describe it. Not just a blessing to me, but the people that can also be blessed because of this, family members, local nonprofit organizations, and just the people that can really be helped through this. And I'm grateful to the Saints, to Ms. Benson, to Mr. Loomis, Mr. Harley, everybody that made it happen. I couldn't be more thankful and more grateful.
You play a very demanding position at center. You're the leader of the offensive line. Do you relish that responsibility?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm the leader of the offensive line. I think it's a very shared responsibility within our room. I definitely have to get everybody on the same page, and that's something that I enjoy doing. Kind of being responsible for everybody in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. That's definitely something that I take pride in.
The matchup on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings, they've got a pretty stout defense. What are some of the things you guys as a unit have to work on, especially going up against a tough defensive front for Minnesota?
I feel like every other game, we have to be able to take care of the ball, not just up front, but they have 2 really good edge rushers and 2 really good interior players that make up like a really, really one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. So we have to be able to protect the quarterback and we have to be able to run the ball.
Well, Erik, you guys are kind of sequestered out here in West London. Have you been able to do anything fun in London while you've been out here?
Yeah, yesterday, actually Monday, me and a couple of the guys went to a restaurant in the city called Nokanov, I believe is the correct pronouncement. Delicious food, great time, great atmosphere. And then yesterday, my wife and my mother-in-law, we went over to Harrods and walked around, looked at all this stuff, in Hyde Park, which was a really, really cool place. So we got to do a few fun things while we've been here.
Good stuff. That is Saints center Erik McCoy with our player spotlight, brought to you by Sanderson Farms.
Thanks, Todd, for that interview with McCoy. Always good to hear from the line and what they're looking forward to in this game. Looking at the special teams now, John, it was an area that wasn't as secure as usual in this last game against the Panthers, with Will Lutz missing a field goal and having 1 blocked. I think what stood out to me this week is the fact that they're not practicing on a football field. They're practicing at a rugby stadium. The uprights for a rugby field are wider, and they are at the goal line, which is different for a football field. How is that going to affect Lutz?
I don't think it'll affect him at all. What bothers me more than anything about him was the 30-yarder that was blocked, because that's a short field goal. You're generally able to get those up quickly, and it's hard to block those in the NFL. That was the one that concerns me. Missing the 48-yarder wide right, sometimes you get a bad win, you get a bad kick, you don't get the laces correct. But the blocked one, that's where the snap, hold, kick operation really, I think, kind of suffered a little bit against Carolina. So that's something that's got to be smoothed out. And Will Lutz only 3 of 6 in field goals this season. Now, he's missed a couple of long ones, but still, that's not the Will Lutz we're expecting to see. So hopefully that's something that will be smoothed out. Not really concerned about, I guess the timing of everything, but you don't want to have those blocks, especially on the short ones, because it becomes so critical. And with the Saints struggling to score, they need everything they can get. So they need an efficient Will Lutz.
You mentioned the wind factor, and Will Lutz talked earlier this week about playing in Tottenham. They actually went to that stadium on Monday, watched a soccer game there, and he said there was absolutely no wind in that stadium. They're built for that purpose, so that's something that he's not going to have to deal with in today's game. Hopefully that will bode well for Lutz. And we need to make sure that you have everything ready for this game, so you've got to head to ASAP, that ASAP app, and make sure you download it. The ASAP app will help you with all your game day needs delivered right to your door. Use code SAINTS22. You can score free delivery, tickets, and more. ASAP, it's the official mobile ordering partner of the New Orleans Saints. Time now to check in with all of the Saints fans in London with the Black and Gold Roll Call presented by Bud Light.
We are at the NFL Fan Fest. We're fixing to perform 2 dances along with the Vikings cheerleaders, and we're so excited to be here. Go Saints!
Louis Fitzmaurice.
Tanya Fitzmaurice.
And we're from Abita Springs, Louisiana, about 40 miles north of New Orleans.
I'm Filippo, and I'm from Italy.
I'm Marcel from Germany. Let's go Saints!
Go Saints!
We came yesterday and we're enjoying the whole NFL experience here in London. It's been a bucket list for me to see my Saints play in a neutral site. Hopefully next time it's the Super Bowl.
Cam. Gotta say Cam. Absolutely love the man. He destroys people on the field and it's brilliant.
Yeah, going to the game tomorrow, yeah. Looking forward to it. First time seeing Saints live, so.
When you say you are a Saints fan, that is something truly special.
Great to see all of the fans in their black and gold that traveled to London for this game. I know it's something that everybody always marks on their calendar and makes a big trip out of it. Hopefully the Saints will be able to deliver a win. Now let's take a look now at who will be in and out for this one. It's our list of inactives presented by Acadian Ambulance, and Todd's going to take it back there in London.
Thank you, Erin and JD. Here is your inactive list. Obviously, the big names on this: quarterback Jameis Winston and wide receiver Michael Thomas. Also, guard Andrus Peat and Marcus May are inactive today as well. Well, with the absence of Jameis Winston, quarterback Andy Dalton will be starting for the first time in his Saints career. Also, with Michael Thomas out, wide receivers Marquez Callaway and Traquan Smith will have to pick up the slack there. Calvin Throckmorton will start at guard for Pete. On the defensive side, with Marcus May out, look for P.J. Williams to start there. Bradley Roby and Paulson Adebo will also have to step their games up at the cornerback slot. That's your inactives list, brought to you by Acadian Ambulance. Back to you, Erin and JD.
The Saints players have all said that they felt really good as the week went on, but it took a little while. So definitely something to watch for, see if maybe the Saints can start a little quicker in today's game against the Vikings. It is that 8:30 kick, early NFL Network, and we will see you right back here after the game for our post-game show. For Todd Graffagnini, John DeShazier, I'm Erin Summers. See you soon, and go Saints.